what's the work that we have to do to actually widen the circle of human concern? I found myself exhausted and feeling like I was jumping in this river to save kids, that it felt like I reached a point where it was like, you know what, man, I want to go upstream and see who or what is dumping the kids in the river. Policy is never neutral. It's either increasing or decreasing disparities. Bureaucracy, that's where like brilliance and giftedness goes to die.
Right.
I find myself being a bridge because I'm not system enough for the institution that I'm interrupting. And when you're working inside of the system, you're not community enough for the community either.
Right.
I'm a bridge in many ways. Baby, just remember, bridges were made to be walked on.
Systems don't change because we hope they will. They change because people choose courage again and again. They change because leaders decide that dignity is non-negotiable. Today's guest has spent his life turning that conviction into action. If you've ever wondered what it takes to lead with courage in bureaucratic spaces, how community safety is built from healing rather than punishment, or how leaders navigate the tension between power and accountability, then today's episode is for you. Director Derrick Wheeler-Smith has led at every level, from youth development to zero youth detention to Seattle Office for Civil Rights. Some leaders build programs, others build people. Derrick's done both. And I am so pleasantly blessed to have your presence here. Thank you, brother, for making time, for making space. I know you are a busy man, but no, thank you for showing up, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for the invitation. And man, it's great to connect and just share space with you today.
Excellent. And I like to start all my shows with what got you to this couch that matches your outfit quite well. We didn't talk about that earlier. I was like, I done seen you suited from the floor down with the brim to match to casual Friday and everything in between. But you look good, brother. You look good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, man.
But yeah, so what is your earliest? You know, some folks met me through as Elite Collective, and other people have had the privilege of knowing me pre-Elite Collective. You're one of those humans. So what's your earliest Carlos Imani story that you can remember?
Man, my earliest Carlos Imani story is from, it's got to be like 21, 22 years ago. My wife and I were looking to do some engagement photos. And you were rocking with Jamil back then, Jamil Shabazz. I had hooked up with Jay Styles, and man, it connected with y'all. And you took my wife and I, you took our engagement photos, bro. That's crazy. So we still have those amazing photos and those incredible poses that we took.
It's still going strong.
Still going strong. If you want your marriage to last, make sure that Elite Collective does your engagement photos.
There we go. Good luck, charm.
So we still tapped in, man, 21 years later. But yeah, man, that was the early on connection.
You guys still look good.
Thank you, brother.
I don't know if it's the water, the Queen's jelly, or whatever, bee pollen, or whatever the secret is.
Marry the right woman. Marry the right woman.
There we go. Shout outs to Portland.
Come on, P.O. Export, import.
Yes. I love it. But yeah, no, man, that's awesome. I love to hear these stories. Some folks, and part of even have this show is people know you how they met you, right? And I had to humble myself of like, oh, why am I not getting the calls? Or why didn't so-and-so? Like, man, what have I done to let people know that I also do this, or I do that, or I'm still doing this? And so it's great to hear the stories of, when I first started off doing photography, right? And that was a big thing for my life, and that usually just kind of led into other things, because photos would be kind of like the essence or the start of so many things, right? For you was like an engagement photo for the relationship that led to a beautiful marriage, and so on and so forth. And those things are treasured. And it's, if you could trust somebody with something like that, chances are if you had an opportunity that came up with your business or organization or something else coming up, that would be something that you're like, oh, my guy that took care of me here can definitely take care of me there. And call back to one of my earlier sit downs with Michelle Lang Raymond, and she had spoke about us in rooms we weren't in, but she said the main thing is be vouchable. Right. And I think you talk about that as well, where like, man, you gotta be it. You can't just talk it. Yeah. You literally walk that in all the rooms that you go into, of terms of every level and every organization I've seen you travel with and through. You leave them better than you got them. But you always like, it's never of, oh man, why is he there? It's like, oh, he's there. Yeah. He's there with purpose and for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Integrity is everything, and how you do anything is how you do everything. Most often, man, you're having live job interviews sometimes, right? And it's like people tend to underestimate that. But, you know, you want your reputation to precede you in ways that are positive and that are powerful and that lends itself to people being able to speak highly of you, you know, and there's a huge return on that kind of investment. But that's an investment in self, right? An investment in yourself as a leader and going, what type of human do I want to be and how do I want to show up in the world? And that I think is the most important aspect of leadership, is really leadership of self, right? Like 70% of leadership, I believe, is leadership of self. And then the rest is about like leading laterally, leading down, right? Or leading up. But the hardest job of leading is leading you. And sometimes I'm not sure that we spend enough time there, because for many of us who are brought like into this work, whether it's like social service or social justice or diversity, equity, and inclusion, or, you know, whatever form or branch, it's usually some form of pain or trauma or some aspect of our story, right, that draws us into that work. And so it could be attached to trauma. And so how do we spend time doing our own work, doing our soul work, doing our heart work to make sure, man, that we show up in ways that are healthy? And so often I feel like what I see are people who have a toxic relationship with themselves trying to have a healthy relationship with the movement. And man, that is tough. And so that leadership of self and that work on you and how you show up and what the reputation it is that you want to precede you, I think is the largest part of leadership.
No, that's so true, because it's one of those things, like you hear it in, you know, you could hear it in family talks and church and community and from mentors. One thing that always stuck with me is like, you can't give from an empty cup, right? Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where, you know, like my mom is one of those things where she will literally pour herself dry into other people, you know, me included, and other family members and extended community and stuff. I always have to check with her, like, man, are you taking time for yourself and all those things? But even that, it's like, do I ever think about that for myself? So you even mentioning that there is so true, where it's like, man, you got to start with yourself, because for you to be anything for anybody, you got to be you for you. Right. And it's like, you got to, you know, can you be the best parent? Can you be the best husband, business partner, community member, whatever, if you're walking around with your own traumas, your own, I mean, literally just even stuff of, are you sleeping enough?
Yeah.
Do you even have the energy to give and show up?
Yeah.
It's real, man. That resonates heavy for sure. So I wanted to start off with, where did your commitment to equity and justice begin?
Yeah. You know, when I think about my own commitment to equity and justice, I would have to say it's really anchored in my own lived experience. You know, I think, you know, growing up in the inner city, really being a young person, you know, during the crack cocaine epidemic, which we now know, right? Because Nixon's right-hand man came out and kept it a buck. He was like, yeah, it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on black people. Watching that just eradicate, you know, my community, and seeing so many elders, older siblings, man, folks who were just young and didn't know any better, but were going to parties and they were trying something for the first time and had no idea that 30 years later, 40 years later, right, that they would still be battling and still fighting addiction. And so the lived experience of that, you know, losing loved ones and friends to violence, experiences I've had myself in the school system, struggling, not feeling seen, not feeling valued, being kicked out of school, struggling academically, you know, all of those experience can shape you in bad ways or in positive ways, right? It kind of reminds me of the story of, they talk about the dad, right, who was an alcoholic, and he had two sons, and one became an alcoholic because his dad was an alcoholic, and the other one chose not to be an alcoholic or to drink because his dad was an alcoholic. And so it's really opportunities and perspectives and things that shape you. And so I think witnessing those things is literally what stirred something up in me, almost kind of like a righteous anger. And I've always just had a heart for the underdog. I've always had a heart for the forgotten. And I've always just stood up, man, for up and I should say against bullies. Like if there's something I can't stand, man, is a bully. That has just become a deep part of my wiring. And so I think that it's both like nature and nurture. I'm fortunate to have leaders, women and men, man, who have invested in me deeply and poured into me. Grateful for my late father, Doug Wheeler, who made such a profound,
the
legendary Doug Wheeler, man, who made such a profound, you know, impact and investment in my life. Grateful for other men like my stepdad, Jeff Smith, right, who stepped up when I was 2 years old, right? And was a father to me when my own dad didn't have the capacity to be, and raised me and poured into me. My grandfather being the first black probation officer, right, in the state of Washington. And all the work that my dad did with Zion Prep to Choose 180 to, Christian Restoration Center, watching him lead. But at the same time, the investments that he was making in me, the knowledge, the wisdom, the nuggets, the things that he was offering, the discipline, it's the stuff that didn't feel good all the time as well, right? That poured into me. All of those things, man, my mom, right? Like my grandmother, the injustice I experienced later, realizing that my own grandfather died on a plantation, right? Trying to save the life of a cattle whose life was thought to have more value than his. Those stories, those experiences, they shaped me in ways that were powerful, that just stirred up kind of a righteous indignation in me, man, that has really just created a slant towards justice and towards wanting to fight to make the material conditions that people are experiencing and living in better. And that resulted in me working and doing a lot of youth development work and violence intervention work in the late 90s through a program called Vision Youth. That also was a gift to me, man. We had 900 hours of training in this program. And every Thursday, they had 25 youth outreach workers from all across King County. We would gather, and we all hated it. But when I look at the investment and I look at those leaders today, it's like Tiffany Washington, right? Deputy Mayor, Tally Hairston, Michelle Lang, John Reed, right? Paul Patou, Viola Davis, like the list of leaders goes on and on and on. But there was a rich investment into ensuring that we knew how to show up in community and how to be successful and how to run a nonprofit organization and how to pay your taxes and how to love on kids at the same time. And so it was both this like very technical and adaptive space to be in, and I learned so much. And so it's things like that, man, that really like shaped me and helped me to develop into who I am. And I think what brought me to this point today, I'll say, is I was working and doing a lot of work in education, teacher, and then later as an administrator, and then later like working in the district office. And I found myself exhausted and feeling like I was jumping in this river to save kids. And there were so many kids in the river that it's like by the time you get one out the water into shore, you got to jump right back in. And I found myself so fatigued that it felt like I reached a point where it was like, you know what, man, I want to go upstream and see who or what is dumping the kids in the river. And that's really what led me to kind of like systems work and systems design and systems thinking, and really wanting to be engaged in where the decisions were being made and the policy work was happening. Because I always like to say, man, policy is never neutral. It's either increasing or decreasing disparities. So that's what really entrenched and just kind of led me into that work, man, is really life experiences.
No, I love that. And we had talked a little bit offline in terms of, the importance and the privilege that I think you and I both have experienced in terms of having just high quality individuals pouring into us. And to think about folks that we grew up with that may have like very similar, neighborhoods, all the things, right? Played Little League together, all the things like as far as like those building blocks, and then like what's different? Why did they end up doing this? And I ended up, in this direction. And then as I'm older now, I'm looking at it like, man, I think it was those individuals that gave me that little extra time, those extra little nuggets. So when it came time to make a decision, I kind of had that in the back of my head, like maybe I don't want to go do that. I'd rather do this. And you don't think about it in the moment, but then you take that times 10 decisions and the paths divert even more and more. And it's wild. So it's like now that we're in position, like I love how you were saying, like, man, and again, maybe not even by design or even thinking about it, but then you became that community uncle or whatever for all these other people, not because someone did it for you, but like you said, it stirred, it just felt right. But now you look back at it like, oh yeah, I did that, and I reinvested in the importance of that. And like, I'm big on that. I have my own, it's funny hearing your story, like how I've gone in my direction with visuals. Like a lot of it was, I didn't see people that looked like me in it. Right. And I used to get mad, like, why am I not getting hired for this? Or why don't I have these opportunities? And then it was just like, man, and part of it is having a mentor like Shikundi, Kun Love, where it's just like, man, just make your lane, make your way. And there was a lot of times where it's like,
build your own table.
Man, come on. And a lot of times that's just what I did. But then because of that, like I'm so big on like, look, I'm going to go and kick this door open to hold it up for people to come behind me because of what I went through. And it's just a chip, right? I try to let it go because chips aren't healthy, but it can get you through some things. But whatever, if it took me 3 years, I want the folks behind me, man, do that in 18 months, do that in a year with this path and this way. And let me, pour into you because I went down a path without directions or without the mentorship. So it's like I probably failed 12 different ways before you even thought of one way to do it. So let me learn from me as we move forward. But yeah, no, I feel so much connection in what you were talking about. I wanted to also talk about how you've been in youth development, detention reform, and civil rights, and kind of how to like those threads connect. You painted that picture a little bit in terms of like, I love the river analogy as well. It's like, man, where the hell are these kids coming from? Mm-hmm. They keep on, they're all drowning, going up, but then how are those threads connected? And I think it's something to be said. And I love, like, to me, you're like a homegrown hero in the sense of you were, built from community and you're able to work within, and then you're not like just like, oh, he went to college and wrote a paper and we're just going to place him on this because he has this theory. It's like, you mentioned so much of it comes from lived experiences. So now you're at this level. How do those threads like kind of connect for you, and how you're able to kind of work back downstream again with some of those people doing that work still?
I think at the core of it, right? Like leadership is really about how we show up in the world and what we do to create better conditions, for other people. And I feel like the role that I'm in now in many ways brings a lot of the work that I've done full circle. And I think the consistent thread right through all of it is thinking about what's the work that we have to do to actually widen the circle of human concern. I mean, if we're honest and having a frank conversation, when the founding fathers wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We the people," that did not include me. That did not include you, right? That did not include women. That did not include a lot of people. And so that's a very narrow. And so I feel like a lot of the work has been about the opportunity to redefine that we, right? Like, who is the we when we say we the people, and how do we widen that circle of human concern in a way that we're thinking about who are the prevented, who are the persecuted, who are the forgotten, who are the least and the lost, and what's the work that we have to do to partner in ways that allows us to construct and to build systems and structures of belonging. And that has been, I think, crux and core and paramount to the work and to how I've been committed to showing up in the work. I mentioned all of those men, right, who have just invested in me, leaders, and what that has been meant for me, the commitment to staying grounded, to staying connected. And that's been hard, man, especially like coming from spending all of my career basically in the community to then going and like working inside of systems. And part of it is because in some ways, man, like bureaucracy, that's where like brilliance and giftedness goes to die.
Right.
And our community has been so harmed by these institutions and by government. And so there just becomes this level of like distrust for you once you cross over right into those spaces. And I think it can be tough because I do think like the longer folks are in those spaces, I think historically what we've seen is that they begin to advocate more for the system than they do for the communities that they come from, right, or that they're called to. And you get seduced, whether that's seduced by the corner office or the salary or, right, the comfort that comes with not interrupting the norms and the cycles that you were once interrupting. And so I just try to stay grounded, man, and keep people around me that are authentic and that are real, that know me. I think you got to have 3 levels in your life, right? I think there's obviously the people that you invest in and that you pour in. I think there's the people that you see like eye to eye. They know you intimately. They're not impressed by you, and they can call you on your stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then I think there are the folks that pour into you, right, and that invest in you. And so I've tried to keep those 3 levels of relationship in my life. First and foremost, my relationship with God. But I think that those are the things that keep me grounded, right? Having a wife, just having people, man, who keep it a buck with you and like, I don't know, D, right. You're tripping, or man, have you thought about this? Or, to help you get off track. Because at the end of the day, I'm human and I'm gonna miss the mark, you know. But I find myself being a bridge because I'm not system enough for the institution that I'm interrupting, right? And so I'm not always appreciated in those spaces. And when you're working inside of the system, you're not community enough for the community either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I'm a bridge in many ways. And I think Bell Hooks said it best. Baby, just remember, bridges were made to be walked on.
Facts. That leads me to my next one. Is like, what do people often like misunderstand about system change? Because you talked about it, like you said, a lot of times people are, work so long and so hard outside of the system, and a lot of people, they see it as an adversary, right? In terms of what's going on. But what are some things that like people often misunderstand about that? Because eventually, like, you can't just fight it forever. At some point, you got to work with, you have to vote, someone has to go in on the inside and help to change and whatnot. But what are some of those things that's kind of often misunderstood?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind for me. I think one is the system's not broken. Systems are made to deliver on designs, and the system's delivering on a design. And so there's much of it that needs to be interrupted, right? And needs to be done over, if you will, remade because that design was anchored in some ideas that were not inclusive. It was anchored in some ideas that were racist and that were sexist and that wanted to shrink that circle that I talked about, right? Instead of widening that circle. And so I think that's the first part, right? And I think that's a part of what frustrates so many other people. The truth is, man, we're like living into the imagination that some people had over 400 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Right. It's like, let that sink in. And so how do we have an imagination greater than the one that got us into this mess? And I think so often what I find is like our imagination has been zapped from us and we're not as creative as we think. And so much of life just has a way of taking that out of you, right? And it started in the second grade when they took our crayons,
that part,
and gave us a number 2 pencil and said, color in the box from here on out, right? And so I think it's healing enough that we can get back to that kind of creativity and ingenuity. And so often I see folks who are so committed to like, man, we got bombs. We know we want to blow up. We know what we're antithetical to. We could tell you what we hate. But when you go, but what are you building that heals? It's like,
what do you love?
Yeah, what? It's like a foreign concept because we spend so much time right in rage and in disappointment and in pain and hurt. And I'm certainly not proposing that we pretend that those aren't real emotions and feelings and challenges that we're facing. But I also believe, man, that building the things that heal us is way more powerful than destroying the stuff that harms us and that hurts us. And that is just a fundamental shift in our thinking. The other thing I'll say, man, is we got to have an inside-outside game. It kind of reminds me of Kobe and Shaq. It's like, why are y'all fighting? Y'all got at least 3 more rings.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when I say inside, Shaq in the paint, we need folks inside the system who are in the paint, working on the points in the paint, because there's a statistic called points in the paint for a reason, right? In the sport, it's high percentage shots because it's proximity to the basket. And then we need people on the outside, right, who can have that. And so we need a mutual accountability and a blueprint. And most often, man, I just think that we lack for a blueprint in our community. We don't have a collective agenda. I could be wrong, but it's my perspective. I feel like politicians are like selected and then elected. And usually it's by some folks with some resources who have an agenda. And most often that's not our community. So, our participation in getting these folks into office sometimes can be minimal because of maybe the lack of an agenda and a lack of resources to go with that agenda. And then because that person looks like us and they get in office, we're like, we want to hold you accountable. And the truth is, I don't know if we're playing the right game, Lo. So those are some of the things that like comes to mind for me when I think about what maybe are we not seeing or understanding, or how might we maybe want to start to look at things differently. Those are some of the things that surface.
No, that's tough. But I do like how you kind of led with that. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel when you talk about, the want or need to focus on things that we love, things that bring us together. So I wanted to just create a little space for you to talk about some things that you're proud of at the Seattle Office of Civil Rights. When I saw that appointment, I was like, again, it's like, it's not one of those things of, man, who's this guy from this East Coast Ivy League school that got just placed here. Like, man, that's our guy. He's doing his thing. I don't know what they do at the Office of Civil Rights yet, but he gonna tell us. But obviously, as time has gone on and hearing and seeing the good stuff. But for a lot of people, they might not know what it is that you guys do, or some things that may happen. A lot of times, it's usually negative things that get the limelight and things of that nature. So I wanted to leave some space for some Black joy and things that you're proud of that you guys are doing over there.
Planning a milestone birthday, a high-impact gala, or an intimate wedding? At Small Patrol, we don't believe in one-size-fits-all. We provide a range of tailored creative solutions designed to fit the unique energy of your celebration. Ready to book? Click the link in our bio to view our full-service menu and secure your date.
For a lot of people, they might not know what it is that you guys do, or some things that may happen. A lot of times, it's usually negative things that get the limelight and things of that nature. So I wanted to leave some space for some Black joy and things that you're proud of that you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, thank you for that, right? I think the opportunity to think about Black joy, to think about the things that excite us and that invigorate us and inspire us, are so important, and we don't do it enough, right? I think
not nearly
the treadmill of life, right, can just kind of get you going in a way that you don't slow down and be as reflective as you should be. I think the one thing that I'll say that is really important, I think, to note is that there's always build up before breakthrough. For me, what that means is, man, there are people who have been putting in work long before I showed up on the scene. And so how do we honor and pay homage to the leaders and the activists and the builders and the transformers and the political leaders and the teachers and educators, right? Like all the folks who have come along, who have paved the way. And so I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of greatness and of so many folks who have gone before me, so many amazing organizers in the community and in the city of Seattle who fought for there to even be a race and social justice initiative. Our office, the Office of Civil Rights, was birthed out of the Human Rights Commission, right? And so the office was birthed out of people power. And so I think that is important to note. And I want to name that because so often I think these spaces, particularly like in political spaces, there's this tension and pressure and focus of like delivering things, right, that can point back to you in a way and none of that stuff happens in a vacuum. Like, usually there's a person who's taking credit for it. But the truth is, like, man, there were a whole lot of people all working to make that one thing happen. And so for me, it can feel and be kind of a little disingenuous, right, to just try to take sole credit. But there's a lot of good stuff, man, that's happening in our office, man, that I'm excited about. I think developing leaders, right? I think equity shows in how we invest, right, in others. And so that is certainly something that I am committed to doing. And I spend a lot of time, man, really like investing in the leaders that report directly to me and our leadership team. Because I can't get to everybody necessarily in the office, but I can get to this core group of leaders with the idea that making that investment and infusing that into them, they then, right, can go and
pour it into the next one.
Yeah, pour into the next, right? And then we just kind of continue to expand and grow from there. We were able to codify the Race and Social Justice Initiative. It had been an initiative for 20 years. And that's huge, particularly looking at what's going on in our country right now. We're watching.
Describe a little bit about what that means. So what I'm hearing is it's been an initiative, but at any point, someone could have took it off the board. Like, we ain't worried about that no more.
Exactly.
Like, there's no more racism. We're good.
There you go. Right.
Okay.
That was cute. We had Obama. Racism's dead. It's fixed. And we're going to move on now.
So that's huge.
It's huge, man. Huge. And again, build up before breakthrough. So yeah, we were able to come along and kick the door in, but we got to acknowledge that there were so many leaders before us, right, who were kicking on that door and scratching and clawing and fighting to get to work to that point. And so we did a lot of bridging work, man, with community and between council and the exec's office. And we were able to get that into law so that, to your point, somebody can't just come along and remove that. And looking at what's happening in our country right now, it's significant. We're watching programs being shut down, folks losing jobs, Black women being one of
insane as far as like the amount. I saw those numbers, I was like, I mean, again, it makes sense, right? The system is designed to do a thing. So when they want to do that thing, they have levers and things that they can do. And it's crazy.
And to watch literally the most educated group in our country, right, be targeted in these ways is alarming and deeply concerning. And so, you know, we're trying to do our part to eradicate some of that and looking at, man, how do we put protections, right, into place? How do we recognize these patterns that are at play? And how do we get upstream to go, what's producing this pattern? And let's address the root causes. And so often I feel like we're just not addressing a lot of root causes. It's the way the system's designed, right? It's everything runs on these 3-year cycles, whether it's the grant that you get or it's a 2-year cycle. And so because of it, I think people are more focused on fudging numbers than they are producing things that actually values life. Mm-hmm. Our politicians are running on these 3-year cycles. And a lot of the stuff that we're trying to solve for, man, is so complex. It takes comprehensive strategies and plans. It takes resources, and those strategies and plans have to be in place for over a decade. Yeah. Right? I mean, or longer, right? Like you're going to need time in order to, and nobody wants that time. People want something superficial and quick, and it's got to look good, and it's got to be juicy enough to at least make people feel good enough about it that you can get some points. And that's not the real work, but that's what it's become. And so we start doing things that are built and designed to get someone reelected rather than going, how does this actually improve the material conditions of the people that we're ultimately called to serve? And that could be frustrating and a disheartening pattern, you know, to watch play out.
No, that's real. And I remember hearing probably something I swiped on or whatnot, but they were talking about that where, you know, a lot of these like progressive things and that we think of as progressive, where a lot of the world it's normal, but a lot of these progressive things that are for people, right, for community, they're not sexy, right? And they take 10, 15, 20 years to implement. And, you know, it's like one of those things of like, hey, we're going to plant, you know, this seed for this tree that I'm never going to be able to be in the shade of. Right. Yeah. But you still got to plant the seed, you know, like what they say, when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday or 20 years ago. And then when's the next best time? Right now. Right. And it's like you have to understand that. And like you said, so much stuff is performative where it's like, all right, what's some issue I get someone mad about to get them to come vote? And, you know, what's a sexy thing? And you're doing this every 18 months. Like you just won an election and then 18 months later, you barely got a new business card and here you are running again. And it's like, when do we get to focus on the actual work?
Man, bro, that's so real. And I think we need leaders, man, who are more committed to sowing seeds than harvesting crops.
Come on, preach.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of leaders, man, that we need. You know, I'm also grateful and excited for, we led the largest participatory budgeting process in the country, $30 million, right? Lots of challenges with trying to implement a new strategy, approach, and program like that. And I think the danger of it is that rather than going, how do we refine it? We go, I'm not sure that works, as if the current system doesn't work. I think what we found is it provided an opportunity to get more people on the fringes who typically are not engaged, civically engaged, right? Because they had influence over a process that they could speak into, that they could connect to their lived conditions, which oftentimes there's a gap between the espoused values, right, of the institution of the system and the lived experiences of the people. And here was an opportunity for people to go, here's some real ways to close this gap. And we can weigh in some tangible ways that we feel like is going to yield results in our lives. And so that was really powerful. And I'm excited, man. We launched a youth civic engagement program that allowed young people to learn about local government and how things work, learn about legislation and policy work. They got to meet with key leaders from the mayor to, you know, deputy mayors. And then they picked an issue that they felt like was deeply impacting them in their community. And they got to do creative activism projects, raise awareness around the issues. And then they got to make those policy recommendations to council members and to the mayor. And so,
any of those recommendations get passed?
Well, so here's what's interesting.
Come on.
Yeah, they're literally in the process of like pushing some things. So some of these young people now have moved on to teams that are literally making decisions in the city.
That's amazing.
Yeah, around some young people were doing some work around gun violence. They're now sitting on some teams in the Human Services Department.
I love that.
And doing work that's policy forward and thinking about, you know, how do we design better safety systems, particularly for our young people in their communities and in their schools. And so So that's huge and cool because I think the goal is like not to use young people as like decoration, right? Or tokenism, but how do we create real opportunities for people to engage and to be seen and to weigh in, to weigh in ways that are real.
And I love the youth voice because to go back to what you started talking about earlier is they're closer to the crayons than we are.
Come on.
You know what I mean? Like chances are they have a creative idea, which might be a little unrefined, but it might be that idea that sparks the thing. So it's like those voices definitely do matter. And it's so important, like you said, is not be performative. Don't use them as window dressing and photo op, but it's like they actually get to do the work, see it go somewhere. And it's like those humans, those young people that were able to come up with an idea and get patted on the back, but then see it all the way through. And now they're on these teams. Like I'm super curious to see where they go.
Yeah.
Because you done put a battery in their back and let them know like this could be done. Because so many times it's like you throw out the idea or you fill out the paper and you submit it and it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is stupid. It's rigged. It's, whatever. And then they figure out other things to do with their time. But these folks got to see it like, oh, wait. My voice mattered. I'm part of this solution. We're working on real things and real change. I'm super excited to see where those youth go. And hopefully we can follow their journey to do amazing things. And I wanted to call back also on the participatory budgeting. It took me forever to even figure out how to pronounce that. But that was like totally new for me. And I remember reading some of the, because we did a couple community engagement activations with folks of just kind of getting the word out. And I remember like reading like, I think it was like based, the particular example that was presented to us was, I think like in New York, for example, they're like, hey, what matters to this community? Like, would you rather have a bus stop here that is high, frequency and you need some shade because there's not a lot of trees and, there's older people, or do you want something else, right? And they get to like pick like, hey, X amount of money is going to get spent in this neighborhood. What do you want it to be spent on? And like, and that's super, low hanging fruit type of thing, but you back that all the way up and it's like, that makes total sense. Like let the community choose what's best for them. A lot of times community knows better than other folks that are kind of, far away from that. Right. And to hear that and like potholes, we know that in Seattle, been driving around for years and folks that got rims and whatnot, like we know where stuff is. Like I got to swerve here. I got to swerve there. And you might get pulled over. I remember one of the twins, had put up a story where he had got pulled over and the cop was like, why'd you swerve? He was like, there's a big pothole. Like, how'd you know it was there? It's like, bro, I'm from Seattle. Like, I've been knowing that was there.
And that pothole's been there for hella. And why hasn't it been cleaned up? And I've gone over it 2 times and had my radio come on.
Right.
So now I know to avoid it.
Yeah. But things like that where if community can make, they know about that pothole.
Yeah.
But your council member might not, right? Things like that. So the fact that you guys were able to steward that and again, I was part of that population. Like, man, what is this? Mm-hmm. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but okay. But then when you start to get to the nitty gritty of it, just like for me, another that was happening at the same time was ranked choice voting. I was like, that makes sense too. And some of these other ideas. So I love to see that you guys were able to kind of, get through it and hopefully we can, like you said, refine it. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, like, oh, let's go back to this other broken system. Like, why don't we try to see if we can make this work?
Come on, man. Yeah, that's real.
All right. So next I wanted to get into is like this next chapter. This is the fun, hopeful part. We're both optimists. I would say we like to see the good in the world and in humans. But what's your hope for Seattle's next chapter?
My hope for Seattle's next chapter
is a basketball team.
Right. Bring back our Sonics. It would be so beautiful, man, if we could find ways to move beyond our tribalism. I watched, there's a quote, right, that says the minute that our politics becomes partisan, we'll no longer be able to govern. I feel like that's where we're at. But even before the most recent presidential election, there was some data that came out that said that Republicans believed that 1 in 5 Democrats needed to be dead in order for our country to be better and to move forward, and that 1 in 5 Democrats believed that Republicans needed to be dead in order for our country to move forward. And I'm like,
how are we so far removed?
That part, bro. Like, how do we get to the point that literally what we actually are saying is that genocide is the path forward? And I think that our tribalism and our moral mountains, that we tend to kind of sit on, tribalism is just asking the question like, are you with me or are you against me? Are you with us or are you against us? And I think good governance is saying, what's in the best interest of the collective and how do we move people forward together? Obviously with the intention of centering the folks, right, who are most impacted, but what can we collectively co-create? And what that means, man, is that you got to engage everybody. And I feel like we're in a place where I'm watching, like I saw where, man, folks were coming for Grimai's head because he had somebody from Microsoft or one of those other, huge oligarch, companies that people are, frustrated with. I saw folks were mad at Mondami because he had met with Trump, and they were mad at Katie Wilson, mayor-elect, because of somebody that she had met with or had on a team. And I'm just like, y'all, that we can't move forward, and we can't do that unless we're willing to build bridges across our differences.
Right. Like we have to talk to other humans.
Yeah.
Like that's part of what
that's the deal
we need to do.
Yes. And we've just gotten to a point, man, that's not where we're at. We're pushing tribalism as if it's healthy, and we're othering. And I think we're becoming the very thing that we say we despise. And I think if we're honest, black folks, there's a lot of black folks that want to be the new white man. There's a lot of gay folks and LGBTQ folks that want to be the new white man, right? Like there's a lot of oppressed groups who want power just so that they can wield it in ways that are unhealthy in the same ways that they've experienced. And so how are we healing, right, in the process of what we're doing? How are we having honest and transparent conversations? And how are we creating tables where accountability is mutual and we're building those systems and structures of belonging? And that might mean it's not Derrick's way and it's not Carlos's way. And maybe, Carlos, we got to come up with a third way, right, that works to usher us into healing, to transformation, and ultimately to change. I think that would be my hope, that we could move beyond our cliques and move beyond our tribes, that we would not buy into the lies that we've been sold around, oh, I'm with the left, you're with the right, she's in the center, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're black, you're white, right? And all of that's becoming a distraction. And while we're distracted fighting each other, the real war that's happening is between the haves and the have-nots in this country. And so how do we shift our collective focus to build the kind of political wheel, man, that moves us in ways that interrupts and transforms these systems in ways that allows them to actually serve the people?
I love that. And where do you see some of the greatest opportunities for community impact, kind of like within those circles?
There's so much, right, that's going on that it would be hard for me to just start naming things. I think if I were to think about something that's just close and personal, our office convened a large group of stakeholders actually before the election going, regardless of who's elected, we're going to experience some disruption. What does that mean for the marginalized or for the disenfranchised folks in our community or the prevented folks? And what can we do collectively that we can't do apart, across sector, right? Across discipline, right? And what would it look like to begin to think about ways to pool resources and to come up with comprehensive strategies and comprehensive plans? And so we've started the work of building that out across the city, getting departments to collaborate and to work together. And instead of putting out 7 different RFPs, what if there was one RFP that funded an ecosystem that addressed an issue, as opposed to pretending that somehow that one organization is going to solve this really complex problem? And so we've convened this group and as a chamber of belonging. So when you think about a chamber of commerce, right, the focus is really about profit and revenue. And this chamber of belonging is really about human flourishing. And that's a focus on that. And we've got all kinds of incredible leaders that are at the table that represent these different communities. And so we're going to have a powerful day, but it's literally a day of healing and storytelling. We actually heal from the power of telling stories. And so having these different communities tell stories, we're telling those stories literally through powerful imagery. So they're 6-minute talks with 22 different slides, I believe. So you're actually using imagery and the power of imagery to assist in the process of telling these stories. And we're doing that intentionally with these different groups to go, yeah, there are some things about you that are unique that we want to uplift and that we want to celebrate. And we also want to figure out where is their common ground and where can we be having some collective impact between these communities in ways that we can work together to advance these collective interests. And then that'll roll over in the summer into our Race and Social Justice Summit, which is a 2-day event that'll actually be external focused, right? Like on the community. And so instead of internal and just, focused on the city, it's looking at different folks in communities. So the first day will be about resource and relief. And then the second day will actually have state politicians and legislators and folks on the state, local, and city level to come and to hear policy recommendations from these different groups. So literally we'll have a legislative aid hearing, and then we'll continue to kind of do some of that collective work moving forward. There'll be a rally, there'll be food, all kinds of workshops. And that whole chamber of belonging is working collectively together with the Office of Civil Rights, right, to put that on. So those are some examples of like that wide thing. And so even in the things that I just mentioned, reach out, because everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. Mm-hmm. And we really see our work as not like the hero, and I don't see myself as a hero, really a host, right? Like a convener and going, what role do you play in this ecosystem? We want to get you plugged in, and let's build this thing collectively together, because we don't have we don't have the answers, right? But we believe that getting the right people in the rooms together and asking the right questions, that the wisdom emerges right in that space as we begin to challenge each other and grapple with coming up with that creativity and that brilliance. And so we want to do the work of giving folks their crayons back.
I love that. Yeah, we might have to have that there. Have some crayons for everyone as soon as they get there, just to spawn that little star that we all had. And some, they've been dimmed over the years, but like, man, let your star shine bright. Man, I love that. And for folks that don't know, like the RSJI Summit, we had the Pleasurely Collective to help with. I think it was the first one after COVID. That's and it was right. Like a hybrid thing. It was at Seattle Center, and it was dope, man. You guys had panels, you guys had different folks just kind of talking about stuff, and we were able to help capture that from a video aspect and working with the awesome audio team down at the city at Seattle Center campus. But my next question, you kind of leaned into that a little bit though, was how do people like stay connected or get connected? They know they want to do something if they're not already with an org or community, thing of like, man, I want to be a part of this. Like, how do people engage?
There's a plethora of ways and so many programmatic elements across the city. If I were to keep it personal, local, and immediate just to the Office of Civil Rights, it's literally as simple as reaching out. We've got like community engagement teams that go out to provide education. There's 20, we got 20 something protected classes. We actually have the largest group of protected classes in the country.
Wow.
Right here in Seattle. And we enforce civil rights for those protected classes. So anybody within city limits who is a part of one of those protected classes and is experiencing discrimination can literally file a civil rights complaint with our office. And then there's a whole process. We've got a team of lawyers and investigators who literally run through a whole formal process, and there's a finding at the end. And these findings have to be able to hold up in a court of law. And so anybody who might be experiencing that can, connect with the Seattle Office of Civil Rights. We have 4 commissions that community members are able to engage in that do the work of advising myself and the office, but also advising council members and the executive, the LGBTQ Commission, Human Rights Commission, the Women's Commission, and our Disability Commission. And so folks can apply to be a part of one of those commissions and can be engaged civically in those ways. We're looking to expand our youth civic engagement program. That's another way that people can get plugged in. Our policy team and director, Dr. Hajar Al-Faham and team are doing some amazing work and literally looking to expand that program. Those are all ways to, get plugged in. And there's tons of other amazing programs that, you're going to have to blame it on my head and not my heart, right? That just aren't coming up right now, but you could easily send me an email, Derrick, DERRICK -Smith, SMITH @seattle.gov. And I'm happy to just draw the connection and connect you to the right person, whether that person is in our office or whether that's just another body of work, right? Like in the city that somebody just doesn't know about. Again, I'm happy to be that bridge, right? Because sometimes people are looking for, but they don't know the right person to reach out to or to connect. And so that's a simple way to be able to reach out. And those are some of the things that are happening and playing out that folks can get plugged into.
No, I love that. Because a lot of times, it's either, I usually see it one, 2 things. One, you're about this life, you're about the work, and you're probably already connected with the community or that's doing or partnering with. But then you got some folks that could be a transplant, or they could have just went through something transformational in their life, and they have that calling like, man, I need to be part of the change I want to see, and want to see how they can connect. So dope that you can provide that bridge and
Yes, sir.
some of these events of just like, showing up, shake a hand, meet a friend and meet a kindred spirit and stuff. But that's one thing that Seattle got is some folks that's ready to advocate for something for sure. So next part is the fun ending, our quick fire round. Some quick questions, quick answers. A book that shaped your leadership.
A book that shaped my leadership. Wow. I'll go with something more recent that I read and that I really loved and that I thought was powerful. 4 Pivots. Sean Jenwright wrote a book called The 4 Pivots on social justice, and it literally is about healing ourselves. So check out The 4 Pivots.
Excellent. A quote that guides your life or work.
Quote that guides my life or work. Man, a simple one from my old country grandmother, man, from Tallulah, Louisiana, man, who used to say, if you do right, baby, right will follow you.
Oh, there we go. There we go. One thing every young person should hear today.
One thing every young person should hear today. Most often you're asked what you want to be when you grow up. And I want to flip that and say, who do you want to be? Because who you are is way more important than what you're going to want to do. Because if you can't show up on time and you don't have integrity and you don't know how to work hard, then none of that other stuff is going to matter. So the big emphasis and focus is on who do you want to be, and decide that. And when you build your life on that kind of a foundation and those kinds of values, the rest takes care of itself.
No, I love that. And I actually want to take a moment on this stand, because it's so true. And it's like, I got an almost 5-year-old, and I have no desire to ask him what he wants to be when he grows up. And I think about it now, I'm like, why are we even asking kids what they want to be when they grow up? Like, I remember being in college not knowing what today I woke up, I don't know what I want to be. Like, I don't watch the YouTube. Like, man, I think I want to do mycelium and microgreens and live on a farm with 200 chickens. So it's like, why are we even putting that on kids? And again, it goes back to your crayons.
Yeah.
Like, who cares what they want to be, or who cares not even what they want to be, and have them thinking about the finite.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let them live in the limitless. Let them live in the illusion, in the imagination. And for me, it's like you said, it's like more of who you want to be, right? So it's like, it's not what I want to be, but let me be this person that on Thanksgiving we're gonna help and feed some folks that don't have what we got. Let me be the person that's like, man, having some empathy for your classmate that's not having a good day, right? Yeah. Those kinds of things. And then what's for them is for them. They'll end up being what they're meant to be, because they're living in their purpose and following their passions. But it's just pour into that. Like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be today? You want to be a builder of, Hot Wheel cars? Cool. Let's do that, and pour into them in that way and support that imagination. Cause like, you got me on this crayon tip. Like, man, give all the kids the crayons. Don't ever take it away, and just let them draw, man. Yeah. Let them cook.
I did a graduation speech one time, and I literally gave every high school senior a pack of crayons. Because that was kind of part of the story.
This is your thing. We might need to see if we can get you sponsored by
Come on, man. I'm like, I want to give you your crayons back, right? Like, it was taken from you, but today we want to give them back to you. Another quick sidebar is there's this activity that I do. I'll put 2 dots on the board, and it's crazy because I've done this with a Fortune 500 company, all the way down to other executive teams, all the way down to kindergarten. 2 dots on the board, color in the dots, and then I ask people, these 2 dots can be anything that you imagine them to be. What are they? And you already know who comes up with the most answers, right? Like, you got these really sophisticated, educated folks, and somehow we only got 25 answers on the board.
Right.
Because we're just too deep, right? For our own good. And we're not as creative. And then you do it with little kids, bro.
It's a dinosaur.
Literally, fam, we had to stop at like 300 some answers because they're just 2 fireballs, right? Like, they're just named because they have yet to have somebody say, you're not fast enough. You're not smart enough. You didn't grow up in the right neighborhood. Your parents didn't have the education needed for that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
all of it. Yeah.
You're in the wrong zip code. Like, they haven't had enough stuff beat them down in a way that it's tore down their optimism and their capacity to think about and to see what's possible. And so trying to maintain, man, that childlike posture that you were just talking about of just being able to be creative and keeping that, man, it's so important.
And it works like no matter what you do. Like I want my doctors with crayons because guess what? There's medical things that we don't know the answers for. We need creative minds to be able to figure out what that is. I want my accountant to figure it out. Get creative, legal,
legally,
keep it legal, but get creative. Like like everyone deserves their crayons. So no, I love that.
Word.
Coffee, tea, or
tea, man. I love coffee, but I've been trying to break up with coffee. Coffee's a little rough on your guy.
That's a tough take in Seattle.
Oh man, it is, bro. But recently, man, tea. I've been leaning more.
What kind of
tea? Roboys.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes,
yeah, my wife is hardcore. Worked at Starbucks in high school and college, and is a avid coffee drinker every day. Has to have it. I'm like,
that's my wife.
Like, you do realize you are a crackhead, right? Man. You are addicted to that caffeine from that coffee bean. But for me, I've always kind of like the green teas and different things. And recently, I found this mushroom tea. It's called a company called Rise, but they have this mushroom matcha.
Yeah.
And again, back to my whole, I should be growing myceliums instead of doing this this daily grind. But I believe in the mushrooms, and they might take us over one day. So I want to let them know that our mushroom overlords. I've been with you guys for years.
You ever been to Wonderkind? I think that's the name of it.
I haven't.
Like a little coffee
Where's
over
that?
in Queen Anne. Oh, you got to check them out. They do mushroom coffee.
Oh well, I'm gonna go ahead and add them to our list.
Check them out, man. Yeah.
But yeah, that's been kind of my thing is the mushroom matcha. So I'm with you on the tea. What's one word to describe the future you're fighting for?
One word to describe the future that I'm fighting for. Together.
Put that on a T-shirt and a license plate. Let's go.
Together.
No, I love that. Like you were saying, it's that circle. How many folks can we get in there and then we can be together? I love it, man. Again, thank you. This has been a joy.
Likewise.
Yeah, no, we cover a lot of stuff, and again, folks that's out there. The whole purpose of this is just to invite people in that might not know what it, like I said, we see the Facebook thing or the LinkedIn thing, we give the thumbs up and the handshakes, but man, there's work being done and you could be a part of that process.
The story behind the story.
Yeah, and you can have young folks that need to be part of the youth cohorts that are providing ideas and making real change and doing things. So, I'm excited to see what's coming up next. And, this, I've been telling a lot of folks, 25 has just been a weird year. It felt very similar, as far as that visceral feeling inside to COVID around this uncertainty, around this just really just uncertainty, just not knowing what's coming up because that and again similar effects, obviously different reason, but being that we went through COVID, I was like, all right, we're gonna pivot, we're gonna figure 4 pivots, right? We're gonna figure out a way to get through it. But it was folks not spending as much because there was some uncertainty around the economy and tariffs and all kinds of crazy stuff. Folks wasn't getting funded. A lot of nonprofits we working with, it's the investments aren't where they used to be, and some of it completely gone. Some of it, hey, last year we gave 30, this year we'll give 10, and then that reshaped how they could then invest in the programming and engaging with folks like us that were doing work with them. So we were down about 30% is kind of where we kind of landed. And then seeing all the other orgs that we're working with and other businesses has been kind of a similar kind of deflation. But I feel like we're going to go into 26 with all right, we got punched in the face.
Yeah.
We getting back up.
Come on.
And we getting back to work. Again, we pivoted this year. And the cool thing coming out of COVID was for us, we went into, a lot of live streaming and a lot of other stuff. So opened up new avenues for us. And then once the lights got turned back on, we got our old stuff back too. Yeah, right. So that's part of what I'm excited for 26. It's all right, we found some new things and some new partners. And I feel like this next part's going to come back up as well. I'm so excited to see what we can do in partnership and community. And, we're always here to support and amplify and engage and elevate and all our keywords. But excited. And it's we need, like you said, we need people on the inside. We need our Shaq and Kobe. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And be able to do it from the inside out. That's the only way we can go forward is together.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. I'm your guy, Carlos Imani, and this is Elite Insights. Catch you next time.